I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
The MVP front runner. If anybody else got to say something different about that, then come see me. I'm right here in Bmore outside the bank. If you got an issue with that, come see me. I'm about that. Big trust. Woo woo. Lamar Jackson in the flesh.
In today's episode, we're going to talk some football. Actually, this whole week, it's going to be a very football-heavy week. We planned it out. So we're going to do top 5 quarterbacks entering the 2020 season. And then Wednesday, we're going to do top 5 running backs entering the 2020 season. And then Friday, we're going to do top 5 wide receivers. So it's a very football-heavy week. Not a lot of sports news going on, so we just decided let's just do this and have some fun with it. So let's waste no time. I'm going to go right into it. I'll go first. So my number 5 quarterback going to 2020 is Aaron Rodgers. I know looking at him last year, his production kind of was scaled back a lot. I know kind of the emergence of Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. I know Aaron Jones had 1,000 yards rushing, and he kind of took over the reins as the whole offense. But looking at Aaron Rodgers, he's great at just extending the play. He can make any play in the book. I know he's getting older, so it's kind of harder for him to make some throws. But, I mean, I just trust Aaron Rodgers with the last drive of him coming up huge and making a play. I mean, I think it was against the Chiefs. He made one of those crazy throws. It was in the back of the end zone, just a strike right to, I think it was Aaron Jones. But it was just an awesome play, and he still can do it. I know that even you look at the 49ers playoff game last year, that kind of really hurt him because they just got smoked. But I still think Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, I certainly think Aaron Rodgers has one of the best pedigrees in the NFL, one of the best resumes in the NFL. It's hard to argue against that. The reason I did leave Aaron Rodgers off the top 5 is because I do think his arm strength has fallen off a bit, and I know that was his number one go-to staple. He's very dependent on his arm strength. Even if a wide receiver isn't open to most quarterbacks, he's going to fit that in, and I still think he has that mindset that he has the best arm in the NFL, but he really doesn't, and I think that causes him to make some poor decisions. Sometimes we saw that late in the season, some non-Aaron Rodgers-esque interceptions, some non-Aaron Rodgers-esque mistakes. I think his ability to extend the play, go outside the pocket, and run around as well, and even his pocket presence moving within the pocket has fallen off a bit as well. I think he's still a very capable quarterback, still very great, but there is a reason that the Packers moved up to draft Jordan Love, and there is a reason that Aaron Jones was the best player on that offense last year, and I think that is because they're trying to transition into a Jordan Love type of running style of offense, and that is because Aaron Rodgers has fallen off just a bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even though he's fallen off a bit, but still last year he threw for over 4,000 yards, just 2 yards over 4,000 yards, only 4 interceptions. So he's not careless with the ball like other quarterbacks in the league. He's just a very smart. I mean, maybe since it's later in his career, he's going to become more of a game manager rather than being a all-star type player. But I still think Aaron Rodgers can get it done when you need him to do it.
Yeah, and I think another reason I left Aaron Rodgers off the top 5 is just because of Aaron Rodgers, who he is as a person. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy to rally the troops, captivate his team, and really when all dogs are down and they're losing, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy to go up to every single teammate on the sideline and motivate them. I know when he won their sole Super Bowl, you had guys like Greg Jennings, guys like Mike McCarthy being the motivators for those football teams, and Aaron Rodgers was just a bad man, and he got it done. And I don't think that's really Aaron Rodgers anymore. So I think leadership is very important for a quarterback, and I know Aaron Rodgers is very divisive in the locker room, and a lot of teammates have gone out to say, I didn't really like Aaron Rodgers, even though I had my best seasons under Aaron Rodgers, such as Greg Jennings. He's not the best guy to play with, kind of like a Jay Cutler, a great, much better version of Jay Cutler, of course. But in terms of personality, players don't really get along with him. And when you get later on into a player's career, such as a Drew Brees, such as a Tom Brady, their ability and lack thereof compared to when they're in their prime is really made up because they're great leaders. And I just don't really see that with Aaron Rodgers.
No, that's a great point to bring up. I know Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's talked to his brother and his family in I don't know how long. So he's a very interesting dude to dissect.
Yeah, it's just him and Dana White against the world, really. I don't think he really.
Danica Patrick. Are you talking about Dana White?
Yeah,
Dana White.
Danica Patrick. I don't know if he socializes with too many people outside of Danica Patrick. Sorry for that mistake, but
He was on the Pat McAfee show, though, you know.
Yeah, yeah, he was very funny on the Pat McAfee show. I know it seems AJ Hawk seems to like him, and he was a teammate of Aaron Rodgers, so that's something. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like every single person, every teammate that's ever worked with Aaron Rodgers doesn't like him, but I know he has a very decisive personality, especially with his coaches. I think we've seen with Matt LaFleur already, and we definitely did see with McCarthy that he really likes to go against what his coaches believe. And that's okay sometimes. That's caused him to make great adjustments, go away from the play call and make the better play, but sometimes that can hurt him as well.
Yeah. So who's your top 5 or number 5?
So my number 5 quarterback is going to be Carson Wentz. I'm really a huge believer in Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the first and only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 4,000 yards in a season without a receiver going over or hitting 500 yards. So Carson Wentz is a guy, to me, is he going to be a top 5 quarterback next year in terms of stats statistically? No. I think a guy like Dak Prescott, who, in my opinion, and I'll get to the reason why, is worse than Carson Wentz. I think he's still going to have much better stats than Carson Wentz because of the weapons around him. He has Amari Cooper, he has Michael Gallup, he has CeeDee Lamb, he has Ezekiel Elliott, he has a great offensive line. And I know the Eagles have a very good offensive line too. I know they just lost one of their best offensive linemen, Lane Johnson, I believe. But besides that, I mean, they had Deshaun Jackson hurt for the majority of the season. They had even Zach Ertz, who's been his number 1 target, hurt. They really haven't had really good wide receiver play. Alshon Jeffrey seems to be more motivated and better when has Nick Foles at quarterback. And even their first-round pick, Jalen Reagor, is a bit of a question mark going into this season. So Carson Wentz, even though he doesn't have great weapons around him, he was still able to carry his team on his back to the playoffs last year. He has an absolutely incredible ability to extend the play, move around the pocket. He has a great arm. He's one of the best intermediate throwers in the entire NFL. He's absolutely fearless, one of the toughest quarterbacks in the entire league. And sometimes that could be his downfall because it causes him to be susceptible to some big hits, which is definitely something he has to kind of work out of his mind. He just has the hero mentality and the hero instinct where a play's breaking down, instead of throwing the ball out of bounds, I want to get 3 or 4 yards on the ground, and sometimes that can cause him to get hurt. So I think Carson Wentz's biggest downfall has been availability in his career. But I think if he's able to fix some of those things up, I mean, again, getting into Carson Wentz as a quarterback, he has great touch and accuracy on all of his throws. I mean, he knows how hard to throw a ball at all times. He has very good touch. And I mean, again, he absolutely carried a very poor Eagles offense to the playoffs next year. Expect Miles Sanders, their running back, to have a better year and to be more involved into the offense. But I mean, he just absolutely fits the mold of the new style of quarterback, which are quarterbacks who run and are great runners, but to extend the play, and they run to pass. So that's why I had Carson Wentz at my number 5. He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers in his prime, I mean, he's so tough. He has the huge frame. Sometimes he does hold on to the ball a little bit too long, but besides that, I think Carson Wentz is for sure a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, I really like Carson Wentz, but like you said, that his injury is just kind of an issue. He having the best season, or he was probably going to be an MVP the year he tore his ACL, and then they went on a playoff. They won the Super Bowl that year without him. So a lot of people said, "Oh, how valuable really is he to be able to win with Nick Foles?" And then last year, against he got knocked out of the playoff game last year with a concussion. So I think that's a big thing with Carson Wentz, just him being able to stay healthy. But I really like Carson Wentz. Similar to Russell Wilson, he really can make a lot out of nothing with the weapons around him. I mean, all of his wide receivers last year, they're hurt. I mean, they have people like Nelson Aguilar, who had a huge dropping problem. So he was really able to compel the team to become 9-7 with the players he had around him.
Yeah, like you said, he was the MVP of the league throughout the first 13 games of the season before he tore his ACL. I think we saw one of the weakest MVPs that season in Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady is a great quarterback, but statistically and just in terms of what Tom Brady did on the field, I really think even Carson Wentz should have won that MVP with missing 3 games. That's how great he played. And make no mistake about it, the Eagles would not have won that Super Bowl without Carson Wentz playing the first 13 games of the season. I know Nick Foles, they seem to play a little bit better with Nick Foles, but I think that's just because Nick Foles has more of a game where he spreads the ball around a bit more and he's more of a team player, a game manager. But Carson Wentz, he's a team that, again, if you put Nick Foles on this 2019, 2020 Eagles team, I don't even think they are in the playoff conversation. I think they win 6 or 7 games, but Carson Wentz was able to lead a very depleted roster with an injured offensive line, injured wide receivers, even wide receivers who, again, have dropping problems. He was able to lead them to the playoffs. So that's why Carson Wentz is my number 5 quarterback.
Yeah, he's a very respectable person. I really hope, like, coming out of North Dakota State, that's a huge story, being an FCS school. But I really hope he can make a bigger jump this year and kind of stay healthy because he's really fun to watch. So for my number 4 quarterback, I'm going to have Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. So I kind of looked at the past 2 years. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler back-to-back. He threw for 4,165 yards in 2018 and then 3,852 in 2019. And then he also ran for almost half a thousand, so 551 yards in 2018 and 413 yards in 2019. But, I mean, those stats don't really kind of do the justice for Deshaun Jackson because he's just great at when pressure is coming at him, because we all know that the Texans' offensive line isn't the best. So when pressure is coming at him, he is great at extending the play, getting out of the pocket, kind of moving around and throwing the ball. I know he had Deshaun Hopkins kind of relied on him, but he also had, like, Will Fuller was hurt a lot, so he had to throw to other players that weren't the best in the leagues, and he just made great plays. And then obviously against the Bills, he made that huge comeback, and one of those plays he got kicked in the eye and still was able to throw a touchdown strike. So he's also I said this about Aaron Rodgers, but he's one of the clutchest quarterbacks in the NFL. And when he needs a drive to win the game, I will trust Deshaun Watson will come up big.
Absolutely. And transitioning into my number 4 quarterback, we can have kind of a fluid conversation about it because Deshaun Watson is my number 4 quarterback as well. I mean, Brandon Cooks is going to slide right into the Texans offense, and he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the Texans. I think Deshaun Watson is a guy who actually will benefit from not having one of the best wide receivers in the league, because I think he's a guy where sometimes I watch him force balls to DeAndre Hopkins when he's not open and other guys are open because he feels obligated to throw to arguably the best wide receiver in the league. So I think next year going into the 2020-2021 season, I think he's going to have his best season yet. He still has a lot of weapons on that team, so many fast guys. I mean, he has one of the best deep balls in the league. I think he has the second best deep ball in the league behind a guy that I'll get to later on in my list. But just absolutely great touch on the ball. He really reminds me of Carson Wentz in terms of their playing style. Great in the pocket, great at extending the plays, but I mean, he's absolutely deadly on read options. He's the second best quarterback in the league beyond the line of scrimmage. He has that great running ability. I know somebody like Josh Allen probably has better rushing stats than Deshaun Watson thus far in their young careers, but I still think Deshaun Watson is more athletic and more versatile than a guy like Josh Allen outside of the pocket and when he's beyond the line of scrimmage. I mean, again, like you said, if you could say Carson Wentz is the toughest quarterback in the league, I mean, you can also make an argument for Deshaun Watson. They're 1A and 1B. Like you said, getting hit in the eye and playing the latter end of the season with just basically an eye closed shut. In the middle of the play, he touched his eye to see if it was still even on his head, and he delivered a strike for a touchdown. So Deshaun Watson, again, I think he has very similar strengths and weaknesses to Carson Wentz. I think he holds on to the ball a little bit too long sometimes, but again, he does have that incredible ability to extend the play.
Yeah, I mean, just you see Bill O'Brien constantly making moves that are very questionable to the Texans organization, but Deshaun Watson is still so productive with what he has around him. he's a humble guy. He's very respectable too, and being a Colts fan, he's a rival in some sorts, but I enjoy watching Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, he's a guy where no matter what, we're going to see the Texans be a mainstay in the playoffs in spite of their head coach, in spite of the organization, but because of their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, similar to Russell Wilson, where he's going to have a depleted roster when he gets this huge contract, but I still think he's going to be able to make the playoffs every season and even make deep runs because of how great Deshaun Watson really is. He was called the Michael Jordan of the NFL and the Michael Jordan of quarterbacks going into the NFL. And I mean, they're absolutely right in the sense that he just has the ability to be one of the greatest at his position year in and year out for the next 10 years. I mean, he's just going to be a great player for the future and certainly the number 4 quarterback for both of us going into next year.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at opening up the discussion to his college career, I mean, he's the greatest Clemson quarterback of all time. And before he was there, they were a respectable program, but he really helped turn them into a powerhouse by winning the national championship, going against Bama year in and year out in the college football playoff.
Absolutely. I mean, we see how great Trevor Lawrence is for Clemson, for the Clemson Tigers, but I mean, Deshaun Watson was even better. He was just such a great passer, such a great college quarterback, but he was a guy where you watch him right away. The first snap of college football you watch, you say that quarterback translates to the NFL, not only because of his great ability outside the pocket, not only because of his athleticism, but I mean, if you play contained football on Deshaun Watson for 40, 50 pass plays, he can stand in the pocket and just be a great pocket passer as well.
Yeah, certainly. So moving on to my number 3 quarterback going into 2020, I have the reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson. So obviously, looking at last year, historic season. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, obviously the MVP. I mean, he passed for 2,127 yards and ran for over 1,000, and he broke Michael Vick's single-season record for a quarterback. I mean, a lot of people questioned, he's a running back at quarterback. I mean, I certainly said he's just a glorified running back, but last year he really showed how much progress he made. He was able to deliver strikes. I mean, looking at the first game of the season, him and Hollywood Brown hooked up, 3 or 4 times for a touchdown? Yeah. I mean, he really developed his passing game, which was really very interesting to see because the year before, I mean, he did help kind of charge them into the playoffs the year before, but they lost, and then obviously they lost this year. But Lamar Jackson just being able to make throws and running the way he can, he's just there's no way to guard him really. I mean, it's hard to contain him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though we're going to have the same exact list except for number 5 going into my number 3 quarterback as well. It's going to be the reigning MVP, like you said, Lamar Jackson. I mean, having over 1,200 rushing yards with 7 rushing touchdowns. I mean, over 3,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, which led the NFL. Yeah. Only 6 interceptions, a 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is just absolutely incredible. He's so efficient with the ball. And like you said, it's been so interesting and so just amazing to watch the progression of Lamar Jackson coming from Louisville. He was an incredible college quarterback, but people viewed him as a college quarterback, as a guy who every single play in college, he's running the run pass option. He's running read options. He's just incredible outside the pocket. But he's a guy where I said, even going into the draft, give Lamar Jackson the football and he's going to be incredible. He's going to make magic happen. I mean, if you have a good coaching staff, everything else will fall in place with Lamar Jackson. I mean, is Lamar Jackson going to wow you in shorts and a T-shirt? Absolutely not, and I don't think he ever will. I think this year at the Pro Bowl at a skills challenge, I believe Von Miller beat him in a quarterback competition. Von Miller, who is an aging outside linebacker. So, I mean, that really just highlights the point I'm trying to make. Ignore shorts and a T-shirt. I know so many evaluators absolutely fall in love with guys, what they do at their combine, what they do at their pro day, but that really doesn't matter. If you turn on the game tape for Lamar Jackson going into the NFL, I mean, you're just an incredible football player. But like you said, he did need to make that next step up, that next jump to be a great passer, and he really did improve as a passer. Watching his tape, I mean, he was very accurate with the football, and he has a very great zip on the football. I mean, he showed at all levels too. The short passing game, the intermediate passing game, and even his deep ball is very much improved. I mean, he's a guy where doesn't have the greatest touch on the football, doesn't really have the best understanding of when to throw the fastball and when to throw the touch ball, but still, I mean, he did show great accuracy last season, and I mean, he is, in my opinion, the toughest player in the league to tackle. I think he's harder to tackle than Julio Jones. I think he's harder to tackle than Derrick Henry. He's just incredibly elusive and shifty. And I mean, he's really great at avoiding huge hits as well, which I think is really, really important. Very few times last season. And I mean, throughout his college career, throughout his season last season, where he was running the ball all the time, I just think his running style seems to be sustainable and more sustainable than any other running and run-oriented quarterback that we've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, it's yet to be seen how long Lamar Jackson can keep up being a running quarterback. I do think at some point he's going to have to transition to a pass-first guy, which I don't think he is yet, but, I mean, he's still a great player.
Yeah, I mean, some people get scared about how much he runs the ball, but him being so elusive, I think that kind of eases the pain a little bit because, I mean, obviously you saw that huge play against the Bengals where there was 3 players around him. He just did a spin move and got out of it. Like, who in the world can do that besides Lamar Jackson? He's just an athletic freak. But the only kind of the flaw in Lamar Jackson is his playoff performances. Obviously, he's 0-2 in his first 2 years, but, I mean, you can't put all the blame on him. The Ravens defense couldn't stop Derrick Henry. You saw that play of Earl Thomas just getting stiff-armed in the next dimension. I mean, it's not all his fault in the playoffs, but hopefully next year he'll bounce back and be able to get over that hump and win a playoff game.
Yeah, like you said, that first playoff game he played, it was Ravens versus Chargers. I know the entire time everybody wanted Joe Flacco to go in. The cameras kept panning to Joe Flacco. That's how bad Lamar Jackson was playing. I was even saying, wow, I think Joe Flacco, just to win this game, might have to come in. But I mean, John Harbaugh, he's just such an incredible coach. He knew once he turned to Lamar Jackson, he had to have full faith in him and never turn back. And that's really what's happened. Again, he's really evolved since that 2018 playoff game. And in 2019, I know he threw for 300 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Not the greatest stat line. I believe he had a fumble as well. But really looking at that game, I was very disappointed with his skill position players. Their lack of wide receivers really showed in that game. You could run 3 tight end, 2 tight end sets all you want throughout the regular season, but I think it's really important to have guys, fast, shifty guys on the outside who can create separation, because guys like Mark Andrews, even though they're very good, even Boyle, were very good in the regular season, but really had the inability to create separation in the playoffs against that really great Titans defense. So I think it's going to be very important for the Ravens to surround Lamar Jackson with really good wide receiver talent going forward. But again, Lamar Jackson, I mean, you put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands, and he's arguably the best player in the NFL. One problem with Lamar Jackson in his rookie season and last season has been his fumbles. He did improve upon it a little bit. I think he had over 15 fumbles in his first season, and he had 9 fumbles last season in the regular season. So if he fixes up that fumble problem, then, I mean, he could jump to number 2 or even number 1 on this list, most certainly.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows, we can see him rack up MVPs and accolades that the rest of his career. So
Yep.
For my number 2, I think it's pretty obvious, the top 2. I had Russell Wilson at number 2. So obviously, looking at his career, 6-time Pro Bowl, Super Bowl champion. But I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks are younger, so you kind of just got to look at the past 2 years to compare their stats. But I mean, he finished top 3 in touchdowns the past 2 years, top 5 in passer rating, and he does not turn over the ball a lot. I mean, looking at his stats, really pull it up, I'll ramble on, but he's very good at extending the play and just not getting tackled. He's just so elusive. We talk about how elusive Lamar Jackson is, and I mean, Russell Wilson is probably the best escape artist of our generation. And I mean, looking at 2018 and 2019, he threw 7 interceptions in 2018, 5 interceptions in 2019. I mean, he does not really turn the ball around. He's just so great. And then looking at his roster, obviously we talked about Carson Wentz having terrible player, or not terrible players, but not great star players around him, and Russell Wilson does not have that, is in that situation as well. I mean, he yields his team to the playoffs the past 2 years. I mean, back when they won the Super Bowl, obviously they had one of the best defenses in modern NFL history, but the past couple of years their defense has been terrible, and a lot of people could say, quote unquote, the Seahawks are rebuilding, but he's still able to have them become a winning organization.
Absolutely. I mean, Russell Wilson also is my number 2 quarterback on our list. We're going to have the same number 1 quarterback as well. But, I mean, like you said, Russell Wilson has been able to absolutely carry this Seahawks roster. I mean, not the best defense, not a very good offense in terms of weapons, very situational players on offense we've seen on the Seahawks. Not only their running backs seem to be just situational type players. Chris Carson, that's a little bit disrespectful to Chris Carson. He's a very good running back, has a bit of a fumbling problem. He's a top 10 running back, in my opinion, though. But besides Chris Carson, I mean, situational guys like Lockett, situational guys like DK Metcalf, who, I mean, was really only utilized as a deep ball threat. So despite all this, despite not the best defense, despite just kind of a rebuilding roster, I mean, he was 1 yard short of the division title. He was 1 yard short of a first round bye. People seem to forget that about the Seahawks and the Seahawks season and how really great the NFC West was last season and will continue to be for the near future. I mean, Russell Wilson, again, he just continues to get it done with limited weapons. I think he is the best touch ball thrower in the entire NFL. I don't think he has the most amazing, just strongest arm in the league. I think he has maybe slightly above average arm strength, but despite that, I mean, he plays the quarterback position like a shortstop. I mean, every play he'll 1 pump, 2 pump, and then he'll run around the pocket like he's Fran Tarkenton in the 70s and just deliver an absolute strike downfield. I mean, he can throw off of any platform. I mean, he's incredibly efficient with his reads and throws. He had the second best touchdown to interception ratio last season, the first best out of 4,000-yard passers. Obviously, Lamar Jackson had a better one. But, I mean, Russell Wilson, again, he's just so efficient, always takes care of the football, just such a guy where he has so many limited mistakes. And Russell Wilson, I mean, despite getting that huge contract, he's one of those players where it seems justified that a quarterback's making that much of the money because he really is able to carry a roster like that.
Yeah, I think it's a travesty that he has not been on any all-pro teams and he's only been a Pro Bowler. I think a lot of people just he's underrated in a lot of people's eyes, and a lot of people take him for granted as well. And looking back when he retires, people are going to see how great he really was, and it's kind of a sad thing to see. He's not getting the respect he kind of deserves.
Absolutely. I mean, just having Pro Bowls and your accolades in terms of awards is pretty disrespectful to Russell Wilson. He's way better than a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I mean, we've seen guys like Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor go to the Pro Bowl. I mean, even Jameis Winston, I believe, has made a Pro Bowl in his career. So, I mean, Pro Bowl is really not that big of an accolade for quarterbacks, especially the quarterback position, because a lot of them want to skip out. Obviously, the 2 quarterbacks who are in the Super Bowl aren't going to make the Pro Bowl. But, I mean, just again, Russell Wilson's another guy where he just is the prime example and really started the mold of the quarterback who runs to extend the play, runs to just avoid the sack and not get hit and make a great throw down the field. I mean, he's a short quarterback, but he has incredible leadership, incredible intangibles, probably the best intangibles in the entire NFL, probably the best leader out of all quarterbacks in the entire NFL. I mean, neck and neck with guys, again, veteran guys like Tom Brady. I mean, we even saw on the sideline of his first and second Super Bowl when they were down, even when they were winning. I mean, he's motivating the guys after every single drive. He's the first guy after a touchdown drive to go up to his offensive lineman and say, great drive, guys. I mean, we couldn't have done it without you. He's that type of player. So Russell Wilson is just amazing.
Yeah, and then also just, I mean, yeah, he's talking about Patrick Mahomes be able to make any type of throw with his baseball background. I mean, Lamar Jackson did it first, so he's just He's just a great player.
Yep.
So going to number one, obviously, I mean, this is everybody's number one quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. So just looking at his resume, 2018 MVP, the first year he started as a quarterback, 2019 Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion, 2018 All-Pro. He's a two-time Pro Bowler. His first season starting, he threw 50 touchdowns, which is tied for the second all-time with Tom Brady. He finished top 10 in passing yards his first 2 years, and he's been in top 7 for passer rating his first 2 years as well. So, I mean, just being the age he is and just putting up these stats, I mean, I don't see no reason to show that he's not going to be this good for 10 plus years. So I think he's the undisputed best quarterback in the league right now.
Certainly, like you said, I mean, he only played 14 games last season, and in the latter part of those 14 games, he played on a hurt ankle. Even throughout the playoffs, he played with a hurt ankle, and he was still able to put up over 4,000 yards and over 25 touchdowns, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, his last 2 games that we saw Patrick Mahomes play, he came from behind to win against the Texans. Then he came from behind to play against the 49ers. I'm sorry, the Texans game was in the divisional round, but nonetheless, I mean, great playoffs last year. First of many Super Bowl victories, I believe, for Patrick Mahomes. But, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he has the best arm in the NFL. He just has incredible touch, incredible power on his footballs. He's the best deep ball thrower in the entire NFL. And I think he's the best intermediate ball thrower in the entire NFL. I mean, those 25-yard throws, those deep in routes, he's just so incredible at delivering a strike over the linebackers and under the safeties. I mean, he has an incredible ability to move around the pocket and extend the play. I mean, that's really the staple of Patrick Mahomes, not only at Texas Tech, but in the NFL for the Chiefs. I mean, every single play, it seems like he wants the pocket to break down. It seems like he wants the pocket to collapse just so he could boot out right, boot out left, and just deliver a 50-yard strike across his body. He's such an incredible thrower like that. And like you said, Russell Wilson paved the way for this baseball-esque player where he could just throw off his back foot, incredibly accurate. But that really is Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is the best in the NFL at that. He can throw off of any platform at any part of the field. I mean, he has a really quick processor, goes from read to read very quickly. I mean, and the game just comes so easy to him. It looks so easy to him. It doesn't even seem like he's trying. He doesn't even break a sweat, and he'll put up 400 yards and 5 touchdowns at the end of the game, where it just seems like he wasn't even really trying. And even though Lamar Jackson does exist in the NFL, even though I said earlier on in this video and in this podcast that Lamar Jackson is the hardest player to tackle in the NFL, I think that's beyond the line of scrimmage. I think before the line of scrimmage, Patrick Mahomes, in fact, is the hardest quarterback and arguably the hardest player to take down in the NFL because he's just so elusive, so shifty. He doesn't even seem it with his speed, but I mean, it's just so hard to sack Patrick Mahomes year in and year out. I think he's just going to be the best player, best quarterback in the entire NFL.
Yeah, and then for me, a big thing is, I think for a lot of people evaluating quarterbacks is their ability to kind of, when pressure breaks or when the line breaks down, he has to escape the pocket. He's the best in the league to do that. And when he has to make stuff up on the fly, he's the best to do it in the league. So there's just no question that he's the best quarterback right now.
Yeah, I mean, we see players like Jared Goff. We see players like Jimmy Garoppolo where when everything is cupcakes and sunshine, when everything is just rainbows and stickers and happiness, when the offensive line is completely great, when his receivers are open, when he only has to go to his first or second read, they're great quarterbacks. You can go to the Super Bowl with these quarterbacks, as we've seen. But Patrick Mahomes is a guy where he's great when everything's perfect, but he's even better when things are not perfect. He's even better when things are chaotic. So that's why Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, and Carson Wentz are all top 5 quarterbacks, in my opinion, and distinctly top 5 quarterbacks, in my opinion. And even Aaron Rodgers in his prime was just because when the play isn't perfect, they're even better, and they really stand out in the department of just when the play is fucked up, they're just the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, certainly. So you want to just we'll roll through our top 5 real quick. Okay, so I'll go first. My number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Russell Wilson. 3, Lamar Jackson. 4, Deshaun Watson. 5, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so my top 5 will be number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Number 3, Lamar Jackson. Number 4, Deshaun Watson. And number 5, Carson Wentz. So very similar lists between me and Sam. Maybe great minds think alike. You never know. But, I mean, really just we're blessed in the NFL today where there's an influx of very good quarterback play. So it's just really fun to watch the NFL at the moment.
Definitely. I can't wait for this upcoming season. But thank you all for listening. Let us know what your top 5 quarterbacks are, and we'll see you in the next episode.